Hello and welcome back, listeners. It's the American Scouser podcast. We're back again this week. At the time of recording, it's the 8th of February. It's a Monday night. I guess for all you Patriots out there and NFL lovers, we just had the Super Bowl, but we're here to talk about round ball, Liverpool FC. I'm your host tonight, Jamie. And of course, with me this evening, we've got the loyal crew, the star lineup. We have, of course, our Turkish ambassador for Quebec, our resident defender in charge, a member of the Defenders Union, Timuchin. How the hell are you?
I'm doing great, man. I'm doing great. Waiting to see Kabak in action. So hopefully
Yeah, absolutely right. Only time will tell, but he looks good, that's for sure. Next up to bat, there you go. I'm already sprinkling in some Americanisms. Next up to bat is our very own ratings man, our peacock and scheduling guru, and there you have it, Paul, Mr. Bickler. How's that for an introduction?
Thank you, sir. That was amazing.
And of course, last by no means least, the man in the booth, our very own Stockley Park. It's Parker, our very sound guy, Weaver. How the hell are you, mate?
What's happening, guys? Hope you're doing well.
Yeah, absolutely. So there we have it, folks. We've got the star-studded lineup, but we will start, as we started last week, with the LFC, American Scouser News in 60 seconds. I'm starting to speed up talking now. Of course, we lost to City on Sunday. That is 3 back-to-back losses at home since 1963. And our dear beloved Mr. Shankly then came into charge, and we all know what happened after that. We dominated football until the mid-90s. Well, sorry, early 90s. Excuse me, getting ahead of myself there. LFC Leipzig tie last week, following on from the news last week, is actually being moved to Budapest, Hungary, the Puskás Arena. So that's good news. It's not a bye there for us. And following on from news last week as well, Liverpool have completed the signing of 16-year-old Cade Gordon from Derby, and another 15-year-old fullback Callum Scanlon from Birmingham, and a 17-year-old, I'm going to murder his name, centre-back Stefan Bakitic from Celta Vigo. And that's in ties with the 19-year-old Liam Hughes from Celtic at goalkeeper as well. So 4 new kids there to talk about. Also in the news, we've got Minamino, who scored on loan for his loan debut for Southampton, and what a blinder it was. We've got more news as well. Jota is the best in the world at FIFA currently. 30-0, he's gone. And one more little piece of news to warm the cockles of your hearts coming up for the internationals. LFC are not needed to release the Portuguese and Brazilian players in our squad for international duty due to COVID rules. So a little bit of news there for you folks, probably in over 60 seconds. But we're going to go ahead and jump right in to the Brighton game. We all know how that one went off. But, you know, we can talk about basically the tactics of that game and why it didn't work out for us. Timuchin, why don't you start us off? Just assess the game, cast your mind back and tell us how you feel.
After coming back from those back-to-back wins, it almost felt like, hey, maybe those days are behind us, and we suddenly went back to 2 weeks before then where, you know, we were talking about it on the podcast here, that it felt like we were watching the same game over and over again. I mean, I didn't think it was that bad. When you look at the stats, it almost looks like, I want to say Brighton actually had more shots on goal too, but as well as more shots. I mean, it could have been a totally different game. I think Mo gets that chance, maybe second or third minute from an awesome pass. If he finishes that, we're probably talking about a total different game. And heck, we might even be talking like a total different game over the weekend too, if that carried over. But misses the chance, and then the rest was kind of like more of what we're used to, a lot of possession with not a lot of creation. So more frustration, and then Brighton gets there. I mean, it's just like freaking lucky goal they got, but I mean, overall, it seemed like a semi-fair result. Probably draw was like the most fair result, but disappointing. And like I say, we kind of thought after those 2 back-to-back wins, we were kind of back to our winning ways, and the mojo was back. And then it wasn't really.
Yeah,
They
I
had
mean,
4
you're absolutely
shots
right.
on goal to our
Well, we
one
only
shot
had
on
one,
goal.
didn't we? Yeah, we only had one shot, so anything's
Yeah.
going to beat that, really, which was terrible. One shot on goal all game. Of course, they had some block shots, all that there. But Paul, they started out with a 3-5-2, and they later, after they scored, went to a 4-5-1. But the low block, like Timuchin was saying, kind of West Ham and Spurs kind of came at us. They didn't really sit back and defend, and they kind of had a go, which kind of plays into our system, really. The low block, I mean, talk us through it, Paul. What the hell do we need to do?
Yeah, man, I wished I knew. I think that I was honestly surprised that like the way that we set up tactically didn't look like we were giving Trent and Robbo the same license. Really, Trent the same license that he had the game previously, which I thought was the big difference because, like, Trent gets that goal a game ago off a rebound because he's pulled in centrally in the offensive third of the pitch. Like, in this match, he never got there because we were pulled back so far, and he was playing very conservatively. So I don't really know what the tactical idea was there. I mean, we've had months and months to sort of figure this thing out where teams it's not only like a low block, but they're pulling fullbacks extremely wide to take away the overlap. And like, I feel like, traditionally speaking, you beat a low block from the flanks by crossing it in. And I think it hurts us that our front three is relatively small height wise, but we're not seemingly being able to get it through the middle of the park either. And I don't really understand that because this is the match I think I was most disappointed in Thiago because we brought Thiago in to win these types of games. And I just didn't feel like he really grabbed it by the scruff. But yeah, I mean, it's frustrating to watch. It's frustrating because I thought we had figured it out by just sort of cutting our losses and saying like, look, we're going to push Trent super far up the right side and we're going to pull a midfielder back to help cover. And if we get beat defensively, we're going to live with conceding goals as long as we're able to put pressure up front. And it seemed like that we no longer committed to that. And it's super frustrating because Brighton's the first team this season that originally do this to us. And so to see them just come in and do the same thing again, it was kind of a head scratcher for me.
Yeah, I mean, you're not wrong. We definitely needed to commit as many men forward as we could to help press, and try and beat them on the wide side as much as we could. But I've read stats that have suggested that pressing in general is down over the entire season in this league because it's just one of those things where it's fatigue. It's all the short congestion games, 2 games a week, blah blah blah. But talking about the matchups there on the wides, Trent was never going to beat what's his man's name, Burn. He's 6'6". I kept seeing the long ball going out to him, and Trent's never winning that ball in the air. And I think that's how they scored as well. So the ball goes out, he switches it, and Burn knocks it down to Trossard, and it just seemed to be happening throughout the game. It was just one of those things. But yeah, like I said earlier on, after they scored, they switched to the 5-4-1 and really invited that. So having Thiago really pull the strings was very difficult. And he certainly hasn't hit the ground running as much as we'd all like. It's difficult to see him shine when hasn't got his fellow best midfielders, hasn't got Fab and hasn't got Hendo there beside him, because I truly believe that they would be the midfield three. Wouldn't you agree, Timuchin? If all things were equal, that we had Fab and Hendo.
I think, yeah, the whole Thiago thing, I mean, I've been reading a lot and, holds the ball and stuff like that. I really think it's just bad timing, and it's more of a coincidence that the bad run is while he's in there. He's not the reason. He just happens to be there while it's happening because, I don't know, he's putting in passes where we're not used to, but just because we do not trust our defense, we have our probably most attack-minded and forward-playing player of the season midfielder playing defense. So we're almost not playing as aggressive as we normally would. There is not that, fearless attacking mode I mean, we saw it afterwards, in the City game too. It looks like we're going, and then we pull it back. We pull everything back. We recycle. It's almost like we don't want to attack and go at people and turn the ball over and leave the defense not established, not settled. I don't know what it is. I think there was a lot more confidence in going forward when obviously you have Van Dijk and Gomez, two fast guys, two fast center backs back there. And I think there was a lot more fearless attacking. Even when they go up top, I feel like it's very conservative. It was the same with Brighton. It was the same with City. You don't see the same, just attack-minded going forward thing. And I think that's psychological about like being worried in the back. Not having Hendo back up Trent's side shows. I mean, you were talking about the goal, and I realized the dude looked like he was freaking 3 times Trent. But you watch that replay of that goal, and Trent is literally jogging back. And he did not, I don't even think he saw him there initially to be able to. You may not win a ball. I'm a short dude. You may not win a ball, but your presence and your challenge affects what the other guy can do with the ball. It's a lot easier to head the ball when nobody's around you, and all you got to do is focus on the timing and put it exactly where you want it. Even a shoulder can kind of like throw off the entire timing, can throw off everything. So he's not there. I mean, I realize the dude is like I say, like 3 times his height or whatever it was. I mean, how the hell did they find that giant? And,
Yeah,
who put that giant in that position of hold? Like, who said like, you know what, we should make this guy a winger? But I mean, that was probably the most disappointing part out of that goal. And I think it's just like an overall mindset. It's just kind of like a reflection of the overall mindset we have right now throughout the players. It's just morale. It's just mojo.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to take. But, in fairness to Trent, he like we said, he was twice his size. He was beaten to every aerial duel there was going. It was just a very hard day for the team. And, we kind of knew it, like Paul said earlier. And they kind of threw that gauntlet down to us earlier on in the season. So it's not as if we didn't know that it was coming. But again, you're absolutely right. When you haven't got that confidence with the people at the back, you're not going to be as threatening. You've always got that inkling in the back of your mind that they can go up and counter us like they did. But we started with 2 changes that beat West Ham, and that was Bobby and Kelleher and Nets. And we can talk later on after the City game about Alisson. I'm sure we'll all have something to say there. But I thought Kelleher done well, and that's not just my nationality being biased. I think he's a good goalkeeper. Certainly got a long future ahead of him. He's 19 or 20 or something like that. But I mean, we can open up the books now, I guess, Paul, and we can talk about the elephant in the room for the Brighton game. That will be Mr. Origi.
Oh shit. Here we go. So Origi, right? I mean, there's a lot of talk, especially after this game, on all the social media about how he's a wasted spot on the team and things like that. I'm not going to go that far, obviously. But there's a lot of discussion about, why he's still at the club, what he brings, etc. And I think that's all fair. Ken Kendra from OLSC Raleigh, he's also authored a couple books that you can find out there. Walk Through the Storm in the Golden Sky. Definitely check that out, you guys, if you want to. You can find it on Amazon or other places. But he wrote kind of a brief little article about Origi after the match and about sort of this whole idea of scapegoatism at the club, how we seem to want to explain poor form, poor team performances, and put it on one person, right? Like how I think he said something like, is he the new, he's the new Dejan Lovren, like we all used to blame Lovren, which personally I like poor man's Pogba better, but we could, but
yeah,
but I get what he's saying.
Maybe we could talk to Ken. We can maybe get him to reword that one.
Right, and pay me too. Anyway, I get what he's saying though. I get what he's saying. I think there's obviously a difference between him and Lovren, but I think we've done this with Henderson before. Henderson basically just shut everybody up. We did this with Alberto Moreno for a time. We have done this with a lot of these players. I can remember as far back as putting it on Joe Allen, but we've done this a lot, and I think there is some merit to that. But I don't think the problem is necessarily as much about, whether Origi is good enough for this team. I think the problem that most people have, the problem that I have, is like a larger problem that goes back to the squad depth. And I think it's not fair to judge whether FSG or Klopp has done a good enough job getting the squad together because of just the ridiculous amount of injuries this team's had. But I think the major problem and the reason that there's so much talk about Origi is that the fact that when we need a change in a game, he's been the first name off the bench. And that's a problem because he's had 18 months of just terrible form. We've talked about whether he's a tactical fit or not. Obviously, I don't think he is a tactical fit. I think that he is capable of some pretty insane moments. Ken talks about how he's going to be a player that's remembered for the big moments at this club. And that's not necessarily fair to him because he was originally a good player on an average team that was known for these super high moments, game winning moments, injury time moments, Champions League winning moments. And I think that's fair. But what I disagree with Ken is he says, Origi's not the problem, but I also don't think he's the solution either. And I think we all need to start remembering that. Well, I think that is the problem. I think the problem is that we're subbing him in like he is a part of the solution when it's been clear for 18 months that he's not part of the solution. That's kind of where we're at. We can talk about this till we're blue in the face and beat a dead horse and continue to talk about this, but I think it's highlighted by the fact that Minamino goes out on loan and scores, right? Everybody's going to be talking about that. Obviously, there's concerns about whether Minamino is big enough to play the physicality of the Prem League. I think he's going to prove that wrong at Southampton. But, that's where this conversation is going to get interesting as we see what happens with that. I don't know. In a team that has depth issues, I think we're seeing the rise of Shaq right now. And we know that, Diego Jota is going to be back soon. And that's probably why Minamino moved. But I think there is room for a discussion on why, considering Origi's poor form. That's been going on for, the better part of almost 2 seasons now.
I think, it's a difficult one when we're talking about a classic number 9, which Divock isn't a classic number 9. We always talk about how he drifts out to the left plays out on the left and then dribbles in. He's not a classic number 9, but I don't necessarily think Ken's wrong in what he's saying. He's not the problem. I don't think he's the solution either. But yeah, having a classic number 9 in this current setup, I just feel like, and Ken's not the only one that's mentioned it. I see it mentioned in a lot of discussion forums. Let's get a classic number 9. Let's get somebody if money prevailed, Haaland would obviously be the typical. Well, not the typical, but he would be a mix of both worlds. He's kind of tall, kind of strong, good with his head, good with his feet. And, Jota is taller than Salah and Mane, and probably Bobby too. But, we play a lot of balls into the box last year that got headed in and got volleyed in. It's not that the crosses aren't working. Well, the crosses aren't working. That's a fact. But it's not that they haven't worked in the past. They can work. So I don't necessarily think that lumping a 6-foot-something striker into the middle is necessarily the answer. Timuchin, tell us where you stand.
Here's the thing with Divock. I agree with Ken. I don't think he's the problem. When you look, you're like, oh my God, things are not going well because we got Divock here. What I thought was really odd in that Brighton game was him coming into the game before Curtis Jones. First of all, that was kind of shocking to me that Jones did not come into the last 10 minutes if you're looking for an impact. The thing is, when you have squad players, when things are not going well, I mean, we're all doing the same thing, right? We're looking at the bench and seeing, hey, who can come in and make a difference? And how many times have we hoped, based on what he has done in the past, Divock is that guy, and he has come in and really has not given anything. And I understand, when I read Kent's piece, it's kind of odd because I agree mostly, but not in certain things. I just feel like he has not progressed, and I feel like he might do better because he does well when teams play a higher line and he's going to make that run. The dude is fast. He can go. I mean, he has a good shot and he can take people on the dribble. But I agree when he says confidence was a big part of it. I mean, he's a goal scorer. The guy knows where to be. He can kind of like sense things, but his position is kind of like an unknown. Like, does he play on the wing because he's fast? Should he be in the middle? I mean, honestly, if the guy was not tall, would you even consider him to be in the middle ever based on his playing style? You probably would not. Just because he's tall, we assume he should be a 9 or maybe he should be in the middle and stuff like that. But really, he does not play his size. His probably like, the speed. So it's just frustrating to kind of like constantly have him come in the hopes that we're going to go back 2 years back in time and he's going to be able to actually provide something off the bench, and it just does not happen. And I know, one thing I saw in the article, and for a lot, you can say this for a lot of goal scorers, that some of the goals they score may not be like wonder shots. And you're like, oh, wow, man, nobody else can do that and stuff. But think of Rush. How many tap-ins has Rush had? You know what I mean? And how many like simple headers has he had in? There's something about goal scorers that they can sense, they know where to be. You got to be there to be able to tap that ball in. You got to make that run. You got to sense that the ball is going to go there off of a rebound. I think I talked about this before. I remember vividly still, and I was pretty young, and I'm freaking old now, so you got to figure it's like a long-term memory. But I remember watching a game where a shot comes in. The opponent's goalie like saves the ball, but it kind of like coughs it up like, kind of like a deflection. And there's nobody on the screen, and you kind of knew Rush would suddenly appear out of nowhere to tap that in. And it's just like, a goal scorer knows to be there. And I thought earlier on, as we watch Divock get that header in, that freaking, it's a Pickford fuck up is all it is, but you have to be there. Sturridge is somewhere around there too, but he's not where he should be. And Divock is in that goal. Same thing in other things, like the goal he scored against Barcelona, that is not an easy shot. That corner taken quickly. That is the great finish. That ball is coming in fast, bouncing, and he just like nails it in. So you saw all these goals of the potential of what he could be, and he just never ended up being there. So I think he kind of almost like teased us. We expected more and more and more, and instead we got less and less and less. And that disappointment kind of reflects back. I think everybody like starts complaining about it. And like Bickler is saying, some fans just want one person to blame. And when Lovren went, somebody had to pick up the slack. Regardless of what happened, it could be Trent losing his guy. It was Lovren's fault. It could be freaking Van Dijk out of position. It would be Lovren's fault. So now it's probably not fair to blame Divock for not, scoring or coming in and making a difference and stuff. But I think it's very clear that he's just not the solution, and it's time to move on. We keep kind of like pounding our head on the wall. It's just not happening. It's time to move on and get somebody. And I think we did with Diogo, like somebody who can come off the bench.
Yeah, and I think Ken talks about that'll be less of a conversation, probably because the minutes won't be there when Jota's back. But I think there is, I think there is some like legitimacy in the frustration, which I don't say very often because I generally think people in general on the U.S. support group page, their opinions, for lack of a better term, usually suck and are usually they're usually emotional hot takes off the back of a win or a loss, and they're obviously worse during a loss. But I think there is some legitimacy in the frustration because if what Ken's saying is right, and I think it is, he's not the solution, but he's also not the problem. If he's not the solution, I think most of us would love to see Klopp not treat it like it's the solution by making it the first substitution off the bench every match.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean it's it's a difficult one, and the whole scapegoatism thing is bullshit in and of itself. You know, they've tried to do it with Tiago, and even pundits are getting involved. I actually read a good piece by Danny Murphy saying that Tiago that this problem that's leveled at Tiago that he's slowing the game down is bullshit. Um, and yeah, he hasn't hit the ground running, but he's joined a new team, joined a new system, been injured, been out. You know, the English league is a much different league than the German league. Two both high quality leagues, but still very, very different. There's an actual a really great read as well as Ken Kendra's. Do go out there and give it a quick read, listeners. It's very good. But Paul Tompkins for the Tompkins Times, that's his own little blog, a great writer. And he's done a fantastic piece. Now, this piece will take you the best part of 30 minutes to read. It's so in-depth, but it's titled, Like Roy Keane, Are You Too Simple to Understand Liverpool's Situation? And in many ways, that's pointing fun at Roy Keane after the City game and his comments. But it's very much in line with what we're talking about right now, the sort of hot take culture that gets the headlines, you know, the scapegoatism bullshit that gets the headlines. It's not fully thought out. It's not, and that's the whole thing behind it. If a fully thought out argument wouldn't get the headlines, wouldn't get people involved commenting. It's the hot takes, it's the emotional commenting that gets people involved. And you know, of course, after a loss, we all get emotional. We're kind of entitled to, but you know, take a deep breath. But if you have 30 minutes spare, because it literally will take you 30 minutes, guys, I don't know if you have come across it. Maybe you possibly haven't. I'm just throwing it on you now. But do take the 30 minutes somewhere throughout the week to read it. Tompkins Times. Paul
Actually,
Tompkins.
I think that's a good point because I just read that article, and yes, it does take a while, but and it is pretty in depth. And I think that's why the hot takes that you're talking about, that Bigler's talking about, is a lot easier because a lot of people don't like reading. So, and it's a lot more common sense, laid out, very simple reasons, but that doesn't sell or that doesn't get the clicks. It's a lot easier to find instead of that might be like a part of the bigger problem and stuff like that. So yeah, I mean, that piece is very well written and very detailed, but yeah, exactly why people would rather do the hot take and blame somebody as opposed to just really look at the reasons behind it, because it takes a bit more work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, realistically, lads, there's not much else to talk about the Brighton game. We can move on to the City permutations right now. So yeah, where the fuck do we start, lads? We got beat. We got beat horribly for all intents and purposes. But Klopp's comments were kind of optimistic, which I kind of get. I kind of like. We were in the game first half. We could have possibly capitalized after the Gundogan Ilkay's penalty. Mahrez impression was just horrible. I felt like if we had got a goal then before halftime, and or at least got the first goal, we could have capitalized. But instead, we go 1-0 down, and we're always fighting the game from then on. Paul, what the hell is going on? Are we gonna have to live through this much longer?
God, I don't know. I hope not. But I think yeah, we were in the match. I think if we would have scored with our first couple chances, would it have been a different game? Yeah, but I think that can go for like 80% of the matches this year. It just feels like we've had an inability to capitalize on the chances that we've had, whether it be a poor first touch, just simply missing it. So, I mean, I think that's just par for the course. I mean, I feel right now like City's just miles better than us. And I think that's down to their form coupled with our injury crisis and just a lack of depth. I think the frustrating part is that we could have gone away from that game easily with points. Because, I mean, we fought back in, and even though we weren't creating much, we were making it difficult for them for, 60 minutes in that game. And then obviously Salah does pretty well to draw the pins and get it level. And I just felt like there were going to be more chances and that, we could grind some sort of result out of this, whether we deserved it or not. And then just to see the total collapse from Alisson was really painful and frustrating to lose it that way. You know what I mean? Because it felt like we beat ourselves, really. And I think that's what hurt. I'm not gonna badmouth Alisson. I know that he was they said he was out with an illness, and then there's some rumor that he had personal stuff with his family going on. I don't know what was happening. This is what I do know. I've seen him be sloppy out of the back like that. Obviously, I've never seen him make basically 4 errant passes that are like critical mishits within 3 minutes. And I've never seen him get beat near post from that kind of range. It was a good.
You know why, Paul? Because he's never done them before.
Right. I mean, it was a great shot by Foden, right? But I mean, we've seen him make like the stop versus Napoli. That was a bullet from like 4 feet away. We've seen him. I've just never seen him get beat positionally like that before. It looked to me like he wasn't all there. So I don't know what's going on. That was obviously super tough to watch. But I mean, credit to City. They broke us down. I thought Trent had a very good opening 30 minutes. I thought the rest of the match, he was basically a traffic cone for Raheem Sterling. And they just torched us down the side. Phil Foden had a monster game. Gundogan was good getting forward. They were good. And we helped him out substantially. Well,
you're not wrong. Like, their form is championship winning form, where our form is relegation form. And that's I'm not sugarcoating that in the fucking slightest. That's the simple fact of the matter. But you mentioned Raheem Sterling, you mentioned Phil Foden there. I've got to say a few things on both of those players, and then we can, I've got another rumor to add to the Alisson mix as well. But first of all, Phil Foden with his lockdown haircut can fuck right off.
Yeah, I hate that
Raheem
haircut.
Sterling. Did he do it himself? Who knows? Who cares? Raheem Sterling, though, certainly one player that has never played well at Anfield when there's a crowd there. Noticeably the difference in his play because the crowd weren't on his back. He was able to play well, and that's probably the only reason he does play well is because the fans weren't there to give him a good, honest stick for the absolute snake he is. But so you mentioned the Alisson rumors, and I have heard another one, which kind of, I don't know why it wouldn't have come out to the media, but apparently one of the rumors I've heard is that him and Kelleher had a clash of heads in training, which is why Kelleher wasn't even considered to come on. So even if Alisson was sick, or even if there was family issues, which were both rumors that were touted around, the other rumor kind of makes a bit more sense. Like, if he's sick and just recovered, you would imagine that, yes, he might have said, I want to play, I feel good enough to play, boss, let me in. Or, if there was a horrible family issue, God forbid, touch wood, apparently his wife is pregnant. So apparently everything's well there. But, you can imagine a player like Alisson saying, let me play, boss, I'm good enough to play 90 minutes. I can kind of see the third rumor where they maybe had a little clash of heads kind of affecting his game towards the end of the game, because it certainly looked as if there was a lapse in judgment there. Certainly looked as if he wasn't fully there concentration wise or something, because like we said, the man just hasn't made mistakes since 2018. I really can't think of the last mistake he made. There was that one, was it against Leicester, where he chips it over his head? There was another one. There was another mistake somewhere, but he literally didn't make a mistake last season. So, Timuchin, I don't know where you stand on the rumors, but
rumors are rumors. You don't know. We don't know. I don't know if it'll eventually come out. Either way, I'm sure he knows. Everybody knows. He screwed up back to back of all things. Partially, we kind of put him in these situations, I think, more than I would like us to. There are times where we played the ball back to him. I think it was the second time when Fab
Yep.
played the ball back to him, whereas he could have cleared it himself too. I think we kind of push our luck with that a bit. But hey, it's part of the system. I mean, kind of like the risk reward deal. We do a lot. I mean, we play with him, and he's good with his feet. And goalies with, who have the ability to pass from the back are premium now, and there's a reason for that. A lot of teams are doing it. I mean, I hate it personally, and worries the heck out of me every time I watch a game. But in most cases, nothing happens. Like, you just listed like isolated cases. I remember that Leicester game. I think that he was fairly new then and stuff like that.
Yeah, that was definitely his first season.
Yeah, and like I say, I mean, it's kind of hard to be too critical of a guy who has won so many games for us and probably won, trophies for us with his performances. So it's kind of like hard to really go at him. I was definitely not happy during the game watching it. It's like, what the hell? But it is what it is. I'm sure he knows. It's not like a surprise. It's not like he's going to be like, no, I thought that was a good pass. So it is what it is.
Yeah.
We kind of, like Bickler says, we kind of beat ourselves and gave him the opportunities to score over and over again. You can't get away with that stuff with City.
The thing is with the goalkeepers,
I thought the biggest difference was, when you list their players and us. Go ahead.
The life of a goalkeeper it's on a very thin line. You can play fantastic your entire career. As soon as you make one mistake, you get called out for it. The mark of a truly great goalkeeper is that you can put that in the back of your mind, and he has done that in the past. So it's not as if we're throwing him under the bus here. He has made mistakes in the past and has just resumed being the best goalkeeper in the league from the get-go. So it's not beyond him to get past this. It's all mental in the end of it.
Yeah, and that's why, with his, based on his past performances, it's kind of hard to be, too critical of him. Everybody knows he screwed up. It's no secret, and it is what it is. We move on. But I felt, watching that game, the biggest difference was you saw one team full of confidence, in form, and one team the complete opposites. And they were aggressive and you look at Sterling when he gets the ball, and I agree, it's a huge difference between, getting booed by, a ton of people every time you get the ball as opposed to just total silence. But every time he got the ball, he went at Trent or whoever's in front of him, whereas we kept recycling the ball back. Whenever they had a counter chance, they kept going at it. We pulled it back, slowed it down, recycled the ball back. And that's really more confidence than anything else. And same thing with scoring. I mean, that stuff is contagious. I really think we reaped a lot of the benefits of it last year. I mean, last minute goals, or the thing that's probably the most frustrating of this recent run is not having as many chances, where you can't say, there are games where you watch the game and you're like, hey, it's coming. We're about to score. It's just a matter of time. I just don't get that feeling as much because we're not playing aggressive as much. I think possession alone, we know now, if we didn't before, doesn't guarantee opportunities to score. But that game wasn't the balance. It could have gone either way. I mean, they play a style that suits us. They take chances in the back too, so our counter pressing can work, and we can win the ball and create stuff. It's just, those mental errors and individual errors right there cost us the game. I mean, I know we talked about this before off the air, but I thought after the Brighton game, the title chances were already slim, but I still wanted to get or if not 3 points out of this game to keep our name in it and definitely make it a lot easier for the top four and not fall behind in this mids, 3 to 8 level in the standings. And if nothing else, confidence. I mean, the biggest disappointment of this week's games out of Brighton and City is I thought after last week's games, when we had the podcast and talked about West Ham and Tottenham, I thought the confidence would be back. And we saw that, no, we're still kind of struggling. And there are a lot of reasons for it. But, make no mistake about it, confidence and momentum is a huge part of it, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to argue with that. It's evident, that when we can go away to London teams and they want to play against us, then we get home and we kind of lose our balls. It's crazy, really. But Parker, I think you've got a couple of little trivia questions for us by any chance?
Yeah, so first one is a trivia question regarding the Brighton match. And obviously, besides this week, when was the last time Brighton beat us? And you can just give me the year, and I'll call that good enough. You don't have to know the situation or score or nothing.
Oh,
I can give you a hint if you'd
Brighton
like.
beat us. Go on then. I'll have a guess, and the two lads can have a hint then. I'll say 73.
I will say it is Brighton, besides last week, have not beaten Liverpool in my lifetime. I was born in 95, so.
Damn you, young bastard.
Yeah,
Okay.
I know.
I like how he uses every goddamn opportunity to plug that in, but go ahead, Bigler. You got a crack
I
at
mean,
this?
I have absolutely no idea. I don't even know, like,
They mentioned it during the game, but I was
I don't
already too
even
pissed to
know, like,
listen to
when
that.
they were last in the Prem League before, like, the 2000. I don't fucking know. I'll go.
It can't be worse than 73, can it?
It can be any competition, not necessarily Prem.
Oh, so it's going to be like an FA Cup match or something then, which was probably named something different when it happened. I'll go. I'll go 83, which is probably. There's no way that's right.
Yeah, I'll go 80 in between these guys. Hopefully, I'll get it that
Paul?
way.
What?
You got it. 1984.
Oh,
And it was an FA Cup win, too.
Nice.
2-0.
I'm just FYI, the FA Cup's the oldest football competition in the world, so I think it's always been called the FA Cup. I
think
could be
so,
wrong
too.
on that, but it's definitely one of the oldest competitions in.
Yeah, I think it's the other one that
Yeah,
I
keeps
can't
changing
get
spots.
yeah,
isn't
the
it?
Carabao
The
Cup or whatever. Yeah,
Energy drink
Carabao,
one
Carling Cup, whatever.
with the bull.
I don't know.
Carabao, Carabao, something like
Yeah,
that.
used to be the Coca-Cola. Used to be no, what was it? Who cares? The Carling.
Tastes
It used
like
to be the
fucking
Carling.
garbage.
Yeah.
Darling,
by the
yes.
way.
That's what.
Don't drink the stuff. It's nasty. All right, and the other one is in all of it looks like total history. Who is the highest scoring player off the bench?
Ah, damn, I know the answer to this one, so I'll excuse myself out because I
Did
have
you
no
Hold
memorize
on.
the
idea.
whole list?
Does Paul get does Paul get to go first because he got closest, or do I have to go
Yes.
first?
Wait,
Because,
so is it
Paul
is it
first.
before
All
like
right.
Prem era? Does that like include like the old? Is it only Premier League era, or is it prior to that as well?
It says on this article Premier League history.
Oh
so
God.
Premier
I have
League era.
two things that are on the two off the top of my head that I have to decide between. Do I go with the?
I'll tell you guys what. I'll give you a point if you can get someone within the top 5.
So for me, it's either going to be somebody who's been in the Prem forever, like Defoe, or it's going to be somebody who always scores off the bench, like Giroud. I'm going to go. I'll go Giroud.
Okay.
Imogen, what's the answer?
Oh, I was gonna say I know the answer, so
Wait,
I'm
Tim-
Just
Tim
is
already knows the
Jamie
answer,
the-
so-
like, am
Yeah,
I the
that's
only one guessing?
I'm asking. No,
Yeah,
it's just
okay.
me and you. But I'm
right.
I was trying to whisper and be. So what's the question? Who scored most off the bench in the Premier League era?
Yep. And I'll let you guys just so that way there's no tie possible.
Well, let's have two guesses. Paul, have another guess. And
I'm doing Giroud. I'm going
Since
Giroud.
it's just me and
Def-
you.
I'm going Giroud and Defoe. Those are my two.
All right, I'll go. I will go. Chicharito for Man United and West Ham. And I will go off the bench. Oh, it's a tough one. I don't know. I can't pick a second one. I don't want to copy Paul.
Spit one out.
Yeah, I'll just copy Paul and go Defoe.
So number 1 was Defoe.
Oh,
And then Giroud was number 2. I was
No
trying
shit.
to give you a little bit of a chance, Jamie. Make it a little more
damn it.
interesting by, if you got a
I
higher
wonder where Chicharito
spot
is
up
on the
top
list.
5, but
He's definitely not top 5.
not even in the top 10.
Defoe's got to be number 1 just
Not
because he was in the league for like 30 years with like half the table.
Yeah, so
That's
we
true.
have Defoe, Giroud. Oh wait, Javier Hernandez is
Yeah.
Chicharito.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Chicharito. Ole.
Oh, so I got third?
Yeah,
Hey, that's
Ole, yeah, Ole.
that's pretty.
Ole is
That's
pretty
pretty
good. Yeah.
amazing that us two idiots got the top 3. To be quite honest.
yeah, I'm impressed.
I'm impressed, actually. I'm gonna have to say, but I was actually shocked to see Chicharito on there. That's pretty darn good because he was not in the league for that long.
But that's
No.
that's what his job was, just coming off the bench and fucking scoring.
Exactly.
all
Yeah,
the
he
time.
He was on
legs.
fire for.
That's what we need from Divock,
Yep.
damn it.
He was on fire for like 2 years.
And that's about it.
Yeah. Well, very good. That was one way to get my heart rate going in a positive fashion rather than the City and Brighton game. But yeah, guys, I guess we can talk a little bit about the sort of feelings that are going around the club right now on FSG and team depth, and if we could be bothered with Room 101 this week, which we won't be, because there's literally too much to throw into Room 101 this week. I fear it would start spitting back out at us. Yeah, let's talk a wee bit about the ideas that are floating around. And, I'm not even talking about the people who are saying, get Stevie Gerrard in and rest Allison for the next game. Those sorts of hot takes can seriously stay in Room 101. But let's talk about the idea that, obviously the season was congested anyway before we started. No preseason, but let's talk about the team depth and the possibilities of getting a fourth centre back, or like we did, go for a left back cover and an extra guy in midfield because of the sort of Genie contract discussions that have been going on since then. So let's take a step back, big deep breath, and Timuchin, what's your, hindsight is 2020, but what's your feelings on the whole issues that are being batted around right now regarding team depth?
So hindsight is 2020, but mine is not hindsight because we talked about this when we were doing the podcast in summer. So we said when Lovren was sold, we said hopefully we'll get somebody as a replacement because we don't want to make the same mistake City did. And I know I'm going to hear, it's not the same thing. They lost one guy, we lost 3 guys. Bottom line is we don't have freaking center backs. We counted on the fact that a midfielder can step in if need be. And we ended up with that a lot sooner than we probably thought. I mean, we were we kind of rolled the dice with it and it kind of blew up. And I'm semi-okay with rolling the dice, whatever. I mean, with the COVID and stuff like that, okay. But I thought we kind of like doubled up on the mistake by not addressing it early in January and waited till the last day to address it. Because if we got somebody in early in January, ideally they will be able to, 1 or 2 of them will be able to play in a couple of weeks, and we'll be able to get Henderson at least out of that defensive line and get him in midfield where we sorely miss him. I mean, it's very clear that we miss him, and no one can argue that it can't be a smart move to take your player of the year and put him in a total different position and expect nothing to freaking change. So that was, like, to me, the biggest mistake. I mean, we rolled the dice on stuff before. We did not get a backup for Robertson for 2 off seasons. We talked about it. Didn't happen. We were like, hey, if something happens, Milner can't step in. And hey, we got lucky. Robertson never got injured. And a couple of times that, he had a pull or he was tired or need to be rested or whatever, we plugged Milner back there. And it worked. But this one was a bigger risk. And it is unlucky. I mean, who the hell gets, every single senior center back out, and not only out, but out for the freaking year, and so early in the season, in Gomez and Van Dijk's case. I understand that part. I thought it was kind of like a big risk and a dumb risk to take, having just seen what happened to City, it was not the right risk to take. We did it, and then we kind of doubled up on in January, and it is what it is, where we are now. I just don't like this whole suddenly everybody who didn't like FSG all along, but could not say shit because we were winning, coming out of their holes now and saying, oh, FSG this and FSG that. Because you were all, I mean, I literally discussed this with somebody online today. Why, I don't know, because literally wasted half an hour of my life I'm never going to get back. But he literally said at one point, it was great while it was working. Okay, so you can't do that. You can't say it was great while it was working. Now it's not working, let's pound on him.
Hey,
I mean,
hey, my car was great when it was working, but now it's in a ditch. Now
you can't do that. And you can't say, they're the ones who brought in Klopp. They're the ones who brought in all these players. So you got to give, if you're going to criticize, as I am now, I thought it was a dumb risk to take. And it is their fault, and I'm sure they'll admit it. And if they had to redo it over again, I'm sure they're not going to do the same crap. But you got to still acknowledge all the positives they did. And kind of like what we were talking with Ellison earlier, when we said it's kind of to be too harsh on them based on the history, I feel like it's the same thing with FSG.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. But that's the nature of people. When things are going great, everything's sunshine and lollipops, and then when it's going wrong, then it's the world's worst nightmare. But it's just one of those things, isn't it? People love bad news and they jump on it straight away. And at the time, I know the podcast you're talking about because I can vaguely still remember it, where Billy Comutio was coming out on the scene, and we were talking about him, and we were talking about young Sepp, and we were talking about all these other young kids that we've got. Nobody could have foreseen what the hell happened. And Paul, I dare say we'll never see that sort of thing again, where a team loses all their centre backs. That's unheard of.
Yeah, no, I think when we went into the season, we were looking obviously at a season largely of unknowns. I mean, I think what we did know is that there was going to be a substantial drop in revenue for the club because of obviously no fans in the stadiums and the trickle down effect that has. And so obviously the club had to be super conservative about what things they wanted to address. Right. So, I mean, I understand the approach. I mean, I agree with Timuchin that I think that we made a gamble in not bringing in extra center back help. And the gamble being that obviously we're offloading Lovren and we're going to depend on two center backs in Matip and Gomez that both have pretty lengthy injury histories at this point. But I think where we doubled down on that gamble and saying that we can bring back a midfielder into our defense if we have a crisis, right? Well, we had two crises, and I don't think we counted on that because at some point when you looked at our midfield, not only were we out center backs, but we had Shaq, Naby, Ox, all out at the same time. Milner was in.
Yeah, we had 12 at one time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, we figured we got to stack midfield. If we need to move Fab back, we've got pieces. We brought in Thiago, in to play. And so he's injured too. So, I mean, at one point we had all of our center backs down and 5 to 6 of our midfield out. And so we kind of got screwed on both ends of it. And that's where it became almost survival at that point, and that's not even getting into some of our attacking issues. So, I mean, I think that's where it really is. I'm with Timuchin, where it's really frustrating to see us have a sustained period of success that we haven't seen at the club since, in decades. And then all these people climb back out. And it's essentially scapegoatism at another level, right? If you can't, right? So, I mean, that's the simplified way. It's either the manager's fault or the owner's fault. And I don't think it's frustrating for me in general to see this conversation as if the ownership and Klopp are mutually exclusive ideas. Jurgen Klopp could have gone anywhere in the entire world that he wanted to go. He didn't go to Liverpool because he loved the city and the fans and hated the ownership and thought it'd be fine. I mean, he didn't go to work for FSG because he thought they're, corporate greedy bastards and terrible owners. There was obviously enough in that conversation to hold his interest at a pretty high level. Otherwise, he wouldn't have gone here. He wouldn't have come to this club. And so I just think that there's a real lack of common sense when it comes to that conversation. And saying, that, if anything, Klopp's overachieved because, Liverpool have won because of Klopp in spite of FSG. That's laughable, man. Like, it's delusional. I think it's half rooted in fantasy. And I think there's an aspect of xenophobia in it. I think there's a large international fan base that doesn't like the idea that Liverpool is owned by a corporate American group.
Well, I can certainly say for myself that's bullshit for me. Now, that's not to say that you're absolutely incorrect, but I'll just go ahead and state that fact right now, just in case anybody's wondering. I would hate to agree with you on that, but it's hard. I guess it's hard to argue the opposite. Yeah, it's a difficult one. I don't really want to dip my toes in that one. I know where I stand.
It's an uncomfortable conversation, right?
Older people.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
I mean, think about every World Cup. We hear Yanks go home.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like every single time.
I've had my fair share of being told to go back to where I come from, so I get it. That's why I would never be one of those types of people. I am aware those types of people exist. It's just, I would like to think better of people, and I guess that's probably my naivety. But, moving on to other things, we can talk about...
Actually, hold on. Can I say something before we kind of go on to the other one? Because I think it's not necessarily part of the reason there is resentment to FSG by some fans is not only because they're like an American group or whatever. I mean, that's part of it, I think, but it's because they kind of represent this, like, the capitalist look. First of all, prior brutal American owners don't help the cause. But the second part is the fact that, there's still some people, and like I say, I was in this discussion online on Facebook for much too longer than I would have known that I look back at it. I mean, some people really still think that the team can stay small, local, socialist, and still be able to compete in the global market against big teams who are actually, thinking of finances as well. They're, the Madrids, Barcelona's, Bayern, you name it. And unless you're either going to have a smart business that's going to make smart business decisions, kind of like FSG has done, and built a team through those decisions. And here's the thing, like Victor was talking about Klopp choosing, FSG and Liverpool. I would argue goes the same way around. We knew when we got Klopp what his strength was, and FSG knew that. FSG would not hire Pep because Pep went with, okay, we'll get these two big names I want. I'll develop these parts. We'll put a team together. So they went after Klopp knowing that's his strength, is to be able to create some super concepts as opposed to, like just signing a bunch of like superstars or spending a ton of money, seeing who sticks, kind of like, how City put together a defense, like spending like billions. But I mean, my thing is, I think most fans are still delusional in the concept that they want to keep the club local, but be able to still compete global. And they look at FSG and they say this, it's business. They're only in it for the money. Yes, they are. Everybody who owns a club is in it for either the money or you got some oil money and you're just owning it for your ego, to win some stuff and do some other thing. Nobody's doing this as a nonprofit. It's just for fun. It's for the fans. That stuff is over. I mean, if you want to do that, go find an amateur club in your neighborhood and go to their games and root for them. But there's a reason why it's called professional sports. It's all bottom line. It's all money. I mean, it's in FSG's interest for Liverpool to do well so that their value goes up, they sell more, whatever, all the money comes in. So there is an incentive for them to make a successful club. But I just don't understand this whole concept of, and I think, like keeping it small, local, it's not all about money and stuff like that. It is, because if you want Van Dijk, if you want all these guys, you're going to have to spend money. I love the people who want to keep it local, but when I have Mape come in so we can have more come off the bench or some shit, we're going to have some kind of a team like that where we're going to throw around money. So, but I think, a lot of the resentment comes from that as well to FSG. And these people did not like FSG all these times, but they had to stay quiet for 4 years when things were going really well. and heck, a month of things not going well was enough for everybody to come out and start complaining.
And I mean, I assume those two things go hand in hand. You know, those sorts of small-minded people. You know, we're talking about a very small minority here, I would imagine. Those people who would want.
Are we though?
I would like to believe that. Yeah. You know, I guess, you know, a lot of people are like that, though. You know, it's not for me to say whether those small-minded bigots are in a larger probability, but yeah, I don't know. That sort of xenophobia towards anti-American and anti-progressive ownership, it's hard to take. It's certainly not what we want to see from our fellow Reds. But like we've all said, you know, there's plenty.
But I think it's more that, I mean, I'm not saying like people who just hate Americans. I'm talking more about people who do not understand or respect the concept that this is a freaking business at the end of the day. And those people, like, you know, why are they not spending money? Why are they not doing this and stuff, and not understanding, you know, how all this stuff works? I'm not talking, you know, about people who just would hate an American regardless. I mean, I'm not that kind of talking people like you're saying no money. But all the comments, or maybe like the newer fans who are more using, it's more not understanding that at the end of the day, this is a business for them.
And certainly one fan that does understand what it means is Rebecca Tavares, Fabinho's wife. Did you see her tweet? It was something else. The lady is absolute class. She's been involved with the club, all of 12, 14, 15 months, and she gets it immediately. But, you know, Parker, have you seen the tweet, I'd imagine, yeah? Rebecca Tavares is Fabinho's wife tweet.
Yeah. I'm trying to pull it up right now.
She's brilliant. So we can link all these things in the description. The Ken Kendra piece and the Paul Tompkins on Tompkins Times. Like Roy Keane, are you too simple to understand Liverpool's situation? And he talks about all of these situations we've talked about. Every single one we've talked about. It's a really in-depth article. At least a 30-minute read. But he talks about literally everything we've talked about on this podcast, even down to the FSG and the FSG outcrowd and all this sort of stuff. So it really is well worth a read. But, you know, all in all, with all of this said and done, all the FSG people who are crawling out of the woodwork, and they may be larger in numbers than some of us would like to imagine. And in a way, I'm not happy. I wouldn't be happy, obviously, but it takes these dark times for people to show their true colors. And, you know, I would rather have them show their true colors now than they wouldn't do it when we're all singing and all winning. So, you know, this is a good way to teach new fans that in order to be a Liverpool fan, you have to have you're made of sterner stuff. You have to go through these hard times to taste the joy, you know, and that's what the whole song "You'll Never Walk Alone" is about. And Rebecca Tavares really encapsulated that in her tweet.
Yeah, I have it pulled up here. So she first did hashtag YNWA heart emoji and then the little muscle flex emoji. One person comments, "Not now, Rebecca," and she responds, "Why not? You'll never walk alone only works when they win. You must understand that you'll never walk alone is for all circumstances, winning or losing. And believe me, they need it more now."
Precisely. And, you know, if that one tweet doesn't encapsulate what we're all trying to get across here, you know, all these people, whatever background you come from, whatever ideas you hold, the fact is we're all in this together. And yes, it's only sport at the end of the day. However, you know, there's a much bigger family feeling to do with this club. So let's get together. You know, obviously we can't. So let's get together emotionally rather than physically, and back our boys. You know, back them to the hilt, because we may not win the league. Fuck it, we may not win the league. A lot of people are laughing at us saying, "Oh, you're never going to win the league for 30 years again." That's bullshit. This team is a team of winners, a team of champions. We still have the champions badge on our arms. We're still the champions until the day they take it away. So let's act like champions. And, you know, when you see idiots like this saying "Klopp out" and all the rest, tell them to get together instead of instead of fighting against each other, let's fight against everybody else. Get that tough skin on your back and let's bring it to everybody else, you know? That's my takeaway from it, you know, and I get there's a lot of people out there with a lot of problems right now, and it's a difficult time, and maybe sometimes they're taking it out on social media. And again, that goes back to the toxic hot take that we're talking about. You know, it's not all doom and gloom at the end of the day. There's much worse things out there than Liverpool losing a couple of games and maybe not winning the Premier League this season.
And I think, you know, some of those reasons are so clear that it shouldn't be. I mean, I find the frustration. I do not get some of the frustration. I mean, you don't have any healthy center backs that were like supposed to be your starters. Everything is shuffled. There's going to be a drop off. I mean, yeah, we always want to win, but I mean, shit. I mean, if you cannot see how things went wrong or what some of the issues are and what the causes, I mean, kind of like, you know, like the Tompkins article says, it's like, I don't know what to tell you. You don't know what you're watching or you know what you're looking at. I mean, it's not, if this happens, I don't know, middle of like last season when we were going on a crazy run and suddenly we couldn't do anything, you'd be like, hey, what the hell is going on? But I feel like what's going on is very clear. So I do not understand the overreaction.
I just think a lot of people see, we have Firmino, Salah, and Mane up there. Why can't we score? Do you know what I mean? Like people look surface level. They don't understand, like, you know, that the entire system of playing it out of the back and playing a high line, you know, is completely gone, you know, without a spine. And we essentially are a team without a spine right now.
Yeah, good point.
But I would also say, Paul, that, you know, the days of a dynasty are kind of past. You know, it's not as easy as it would be for, let's say, you know, the United of old, or maybe an NFL. I don't know. I'm not a big American football guy, but you know, it's very hard to get a dynasty in any sort of sport because it's constantly changing. Everybody's constantly up against each other to do better, and especially when money's involved. You know, when a couple of teams with money are involved, then the pressure gets tenfold to perform to their levels because they've got a seemingly never-ending checkbook. You know, it's a very hard thing to even contemplate having a dynasty. Liverpool had one. You know, we talked at the start of the pod this is the first time we've lost 3 home games back to back since 63. You know, Bill Shankly took over then and won his first league title with Liverpool in 63. And we pretty much dominated football up until the 90s, up until after Hillsborough. We fucking dominated football for decades, you know? So it's not as easy as it was back then.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you're right. I mean, people don't understand how hard it is to repeat. Like, you know, you had City do it, and then before City, it was another 10 years before you had somebody do it. And it's only going to get harder, you know, with modern football and the way that works, for sure.
You got to get Tom Brady, man.
Pass. hard pass.
That was a
Maybe
quick
we could
pass.
get him in like
That was a
Detroit.
quick pass.
Get him on the Lions, man. That could be the key for you.
Hard
Meanwhile,
pass on Tom Brady.
But, you know, all jokes aside, folks, go out there, talk to your fellow Reds, love them, hug them if you can, if they're in your family tree. Unfortunately, Timuchin has a Manchester United fan in his family tree, so just think about that for a second, you know? It could be worse, folks. It could always be worse. But lads, Parker, Paul, Timuchin, if we've got anything else to add, now would be the time, and then we can all say our goodbyes, and we will talk to the listeners next week. And like I said, give your fellow Liverpool fans a virtual hug if you can, and we'll all stick together behind our men. You'll never walk alone. As always, turn on, tune in, and cop out with us at American Scouser. If you're in need of any more stuff, head on over to americanscouser.com. We've got you covered. We've got our man Paul Bickler. We've got our man Hesh on the articles. So plenty of blogs to keep you there. And we will link in the comments section all the articles we've talked about today, Ken Kendra and Tompkins Times. So, folks, without further ado, we're going to love yous and leave yous. You'll never walk alone.